Hello! So for today's Archaeology 100 Fest video, we're going to be making some leather pouches, little leather coin pouches like this. And you can make these in any size you want. They're really quite satisfying to make. They're pretty simple. You need very few tools and very little experience to get a really nice job. And they open up, little bead closure, you can open them up like that. And you end up with a nice little pouch that you can put whatever you want into and then close up again with the drawstring. And that fits nice and flat in the pocket, great for coins, great for keys, whatever. Right, so as I said, you need very few tools really to do this. First off, you need something to cut with. A pair of scissors, good strong scissors is advisable. You could also do it with a scalpel, Stanley knife, whatever you've got will work. You need something to punch holes with. Now a set of hole punches like this is very useful. Imagine if you were very careful you might be able to do it with an office hole punch, or you can use slightly more old-fashioned types of hammered punches like that. At a pinch you might be able to use a 6-inch nail if you were to flatten the end off and then hit it against something hard, but it would be a very messy way of doing it. So emergencies only. And what else do you need? You need something to write with, or rather a pen that will draw on leather and paper. And that's about it for the actual tools you'll need. The materials, you'll need obviously some leather. So some fairly thin leather is best. If it's about 1mm to 1.5mm thick, that will be great. The kind of thing that you get on sofas. You can get leather from pretty much anywhere if you're crafty about it. This bit came from an old leather coat that wasn't wanted, and sometimes you can find leather sofas in the street that people don't mind if you take the leather off. Definitely ask them first. But I got this piece on eBay as part of a full hide for making some bellows for the original Archaeology 100 Fest day, which will hopefully still be going on further on in the year. And what else? You'll need some string. And this is like a more braided style string, a little bit like paracord but made out of natural materials. You need a nice strong string. I wouldn't recommend twine or like packaging string, but use whatever you've got, it'll work. And you also need a few beads. The beads are optional, you don't have to put the beads on, but I think it makes it look nice and it finishes it rather nicely. So just a couple of little wooden beads like that are fine. And if you haven't got any wooden beads knocking about, you can scavenge them off chunky jewellery. Sometimes you get them on belts. You can also buy them from craft stores, or you could just make your own. They're very simple to make. If you've got a little piece of bone or antler or wood or amber even, you can just drill a hole through it, sand it over, make it nice and smooth. Make sure your hole's big enough to fit the strings, and you're good to go. So, now we've got all the bits we need. I'm going to move the camera and we'll start the process of making it. Right, okay, hello again. The first thing you're going to need to do is make a template for the bag's body, I suppose. I've made a couple here, just out of cardboard. They're very simple, very easy thing to make, and they will make this a lot easier to make. So first off, sizing. So you can make large ones or small ones or any one in between. You can play around with it. They're so simple and quick to make. You can end up making quite a few of these in one session if you're enjoying it. A good kind of generic size for them is about the size of a side plate. So you can, if you want to, just draw around a side plate like that, and then you've got your circle. A slightly more high-tech way to do it would be to use a compass, and the diameter for a smallish pouch is about 7 inches or so. So that's about 18 centimeters. So I'll set the radius on this to 3.5 inches, and then we'll draw a circle. Now I'm just using some fairly thick sketchbook paper, but any stiff paper or light card will do really well. And so there we are. So that's the outside of the shape, and now we need to mark a line about 10 millimeters in from that. And if you're using the plate, then this isn't necessary, but it does make it easier if you're using the compass. Right, there we go. Now we've got our circle. We'll cut that out. Cut that out using our scissors. Right, now we've got our template. We'll fold it in half as neatly as possible, and now we have a line running down the middle, and then we'll fold it in half the other way and meet those lines up so we get a fairly accurate quadrant of the circle. Now we've got our 4 quadrants, we can mark on a dot at each of those. And then you can either keep folding it, or you can just eyeball in the rest. So we'll just keep halving these quadrants. It's not actually that imperative that all of these holes are exactly the same distance apart. It makes very little difference in the end. So eyeballing it is perfectly acceptable. So now we've got 8 holes. We'll do it again. We'll halve those again to get 16. And that's pretty much the template. And now you can use your hole punch to punch out a little hole on each of these dots. And there we are. So that's your template, and that'll make a pouch roughly that size, because it all folds in quite and kind of concertinas around itself quite a lot. So now we've got that, put that to one side. We'll take our leather, and we'll draw on the flesh side rather than the skin side, because the skin side will be poking out, or rather showing on the outside, and the flesh side will be on the inside. So we'll take our template, put it nice near the edge, try not to waste your leather, and we'll just draw around it as neatly as we can. Excellent, there we go. So now we've got that marked out, we just need to cut it out. So we can use our scissors, or like I said, if you have a scalpel, you can do it with a scalpel if you're careful. Scissors on thin leather seem to work quite well. Obviously this won't work on very thick leather, so I'd say probably 1.5 millimeters thick is your maximum. Right, there we go, get rid of those, get rid of that. There we are. So now we've got that, and we'll punch all our holes. And this takes a little while, but you'll probably, the size of the hole will really depend on what string you're using, but usually I'd say probably 3 or 4 millimeter wide holes will be more than adequate for most of the string you'll be using to hold this. So now it comes to stringing it up. So you can, with this type of cord, it gets a little bit frayed at the ends, as most kinds of cord will, and that will make it a little bit difficult to get through the holes. So what you can do is, if you get a piece of beeswax, you can get a good bit of beeswax into the end of it, and that will stiffen it up. Because this string here is really over length, so once we've got the bag sewn up, we can just cut this end off, and now that's nice and stiff with the beeswax. We'll go in from the outside, so we'll start our sewing by going in from the outer side that we will see. So in that way, get a good bit through, and then just come in from the inside as well. So then we'll just be making this very simple running stitch all the way around the outside, and eventually we'll end up with this one coming out of there and the other one coming out of that one, because we have an even number of holes. This can be done with an odd number of holes, but you'll have to have the string coming out of the same hole. Right, nice. So now we've got all that sewn in like that. You'll see we've got two ends coming out of there. Now all we need to do is hold them there, pull these strings tight, and make sure all the little veins are going in the same direction, like that, little spiral. And that's the pouch, the basis of the pouch, complete. Now we can decorate this in pretty much any way you want. I find a nice little bead closure helps in its use, and it makes it look rather pretty, so we'll do that. You can use any kind of bead you want. I've got some little wooden ones here, little bone ones would work well, or an antler toggle, lovely, would look brilliant on that. And if you don't want to put beads on it, you can just tie it shut like that, and that will be perfectly fine, but personally I think the beads make it more fun. So we'll just get those together. You might want to get a bit more beeswax on the ends of your threads so they slip through the bead holes easier. There we go. So I've just got one thread, one piece of string sat just behind the other, so that it'll get through the bead easier. So put that through there like that. I'll put another one on, and we can even up the strings and cinch that down like that. Now, if you open it up, you can open it to however wide you really want it to be when it's in use. See, that's quite a nice useful size. Get your hand in there. So we'll tie it off about there. It's a simple knot. Will do. And we'll clip them. Cool. So now we've got our little bag, nice and finished. There it is. Right, so there we are. Here's our little pouch. Made that rather quickly. Try not to keep the video too long. We can use that for whatever you like, and hopefully it'll keep the quarantine boredom at bay. Set up a little production line or something. Who knows? This has been my first video for the Cardiff University's Archaeology 100 Fest. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll try and do a few more on some more traditional crafts for you. Nice one. Cheers.